Alrighty, let's get started. To those of you who read the room sign, the donor for today's lecture asked a couple questions about thickness that he wanted answered, and this seems to be a good format for it. We'll read these questions out loud. If white A black B, white C, white is okay. So this is all about, his questions are about thickness, and he's wondering why the white's okay versus the one in the bottom left. If white 1, black 2. Okay, that's that spot. Was it here? No, yes. No, this isn't it, is it? I have to go back and reread it. If white 1, black 2, white 3. It is there. Okay. No, one over here. Yeah, right? Okay. So we see the top situation looks like the left situation. I think I've got it set up correctly. Does it all make sense so far? We see the position. We see how they're similar. Okay, now he's thinking, what's the big difference? Oh, hey, sweet. So, the difference is, and this is all about thickness, and this is what defines thickness. White in contact, and black wants to respond, or else there's Aji here. Hey, coffee? So there's things for white to do, even this move, that's sente, followed by another sente. There's things to do against this black position, on the right and on the left. But if you look at the bottom left, this is about it. That's not a lot going on. Black can even play this way to be very, white got almost nothing. So thickness has everything to do with how many forcing moves are there. Now in the questions, there's also things like this. Isn't, here's a weakness for black. True, but if black does nothing, there's really no Aji there to speak of. White's much weaker than black still. So even if black passes, white's still at a disadvantage. So it's not even sente, or black can answer this way to completely remove it. In his questions, he also asked about K3. Is K3 part of thickness? And to answer that, we just have to look at this spot. So let's remove K3 and replace it with some white stones. All of a sudden, the F5 peep has a lot more meaning. G4 is now showing some weakness, so it's not thick. Does that make sense? How this one black weakness at F4 is showing itself to actually be weak. But if we put the black stone back, it's not showing itself to be weak. And if we take K3 off altogether, very little weakness. But if there are not 4 stones for white down there, exactly. So let's take this white stone off. Is black thick? On the left side of the black structure? Yeah. On the middle where that cut is, I wouldn't exactly call it thick, but very hard for white to do anything, almost thick. And the moment we add that other stone, then there really isn't anything. So yeah, K3 adds a little bit towards thickness. I'd almost say not. Transition case. I don't understand that. And by the way, Swede is the one that asked the question, so he's due all the questions he wants. I see. Okay, so I think I understand his question. Let me change this. I'm going to take off K3 and put it at F4. Okay, now black is thick unconditionally. There is nothing that's potentially weak for black. No cuts, no peeps, no nothing. If we're going to try to make this group not thick, that would be pretty hard. I think we'd have to put a bunch of white stones down here. And instead of thick, it's become weak. If something's thick, it can fight well. Pretty soon, black's not going to be able to fight well, so we can't call it thick anymore. Yeah, it's not exactly true, because even locally, black can play this and cross-cut and use his wall. So it's still thick. Yeah, unconditionally, I'm wondering if that term, if there's some way I can say it's not literally unconditional. Seems unconditional might apply. Is there some strange perverted chord position where we can say, oh, it's not actually thick? Pretty hard to find one. Okay, so it has everything to do with, is there a way to mess with it? And in the upper right, we can mess with it easily with something like this. So easy to mess with black's position because it has holes in it. And in the bottom left, there's one little hole that's really not a bother at all. So that he is thick. So does that help answer the question, Swede? What do you add to the upper right to make it thick? That's a good question. This is certainly thick. No question about that. What can white do against this? Nothing. Now, if we're talking about the right side, is that black thick? Well, not exactly. There's things like this. Little bit of a hole. If black submits, he submitted. And if he doesn't answer, even with the answer, we have an Atari. These are all helps to white. You know, this Atari is a help to white. So that little bit of weakness on the right, white can abuse that. If black cuts, if he doesn't submit, he wants to save his stone, even if he saves it this way, sente, sente, and white got out because black wasn't perfectly thick. So on the right side, black's not thick. So let's make him thick there. Now he's thick on all sides. So thickness has everything to do with, is there something there that will help the opponent? If we put this here, not exactly thick. This is by all means a helpful move. It definitely helps white to get out. Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, by all means. Yeah, thickness is directional. Let's make that real obvious on the bottom left. On the bottom left, the thickness is not facing the right. It's facing the left. It's not facing the bottom. It's facing the left. By all means, thickness is directional. Absolutely. Okay, that took us about 10 minutes. For our second part, we can either do a review, or last week we did create our own game, and we can continue on from where we left off. So let's take a vote. I'm prepared for either one. Does one of those sound better than another? We have a vote for continuing our create your own game. Looks like Libertad will have a very powerful vote here. We have them either. Okay, voting's about to close. We're about to do a continuation. And voting is now closed. Okay, I'll call up that game.